Cloud. And
Thank you
Carly's here.
so much, Stan.
Thank you.
Uh,
And
I'm Shannon MacArthur. I work here, play here with Stan Pockris, who started the After Chat on day 60 of Humanity Rising. And he and I keep the conversation going, inviting people to put their hands up to be a part of the conversation. Other than that, I kind of keep the balls in the air. And just like Ben did today in our main session on Humanity Rising, thank you so much, Ben, for gathering the team that you did for this wonderful conversation.
the team, the magic is in the team. So thank you,
I
Carly.
know.
And then I've heard from several others.
Excellent. And Kurt, I see your hand up. Come on in.
Oh boy, thank you so much again, Carly and Ben. I hope everybody else gets on because this is after chat that gets to be able to bring things into action. Um, we actually formed the Peace Lab because of the people in listening to Humanity Rising for so long. We're thinking we got to put this in action because we've been all activists all our life, and we produce some of the programs that Humanity Rising has, and it's a diversity of things. And this is what I see you understand is that there's no regional separation between climate. It's all interactive, just like our whole body. Mother Earth is just magical. And we understand that. That's why we're so excited about what we can do. And just thank you so much. And a key thing is what Darren brought on is the story. It really
Yeah.
transforms people to understand the depth of value. What is really valuable? And without that, we could have all the facts in the world, and people would say, "Yeah, that's the left brain," but we want to touch the hearts. And without the hearts, what's life like? Holy whatever. But thank you. I would love to keep connected, and if there's any way I can help you, I'm game to do it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the first ecological laws, everything is connected to everything else, just like the body.
Yeah, one of our favorite programs that we did was on biomimicry, and it showed, how we use biology and everything in life, but we get to be able to understand that we are nature. We're not
Yep.
separate from nature. How can we
Right.
be separate from all that is? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kurt. One of the things that I noticed in the Humanity Rising chat is mention of oil. And of course, when oil got mentioned, of course, soil had to be mentioned as well. And soil and oil were two issues that we didn't talk about today. Um, can you address those issues? Hi, Chandler. Good to have you with us.
When you say oil, talking about petroleum,
Yeah,
yeah. So
sure.
climate change is a contributor to the global decline of saline lakes, and one that will become increasingly important. So, for example, in the Great Salt Lake watershed, the river runoff, all else held equal, is expected to decrease by about 15% over the next several decades. And so that's going to make it all the more difficult to restore the lake and maintain it at a healthy level. But currently, as was mentioned by the panelists, the primary driver is local water consumption, and that connects to the second part of your point, Shannon, the soil question. And there is a big soil health and regenerative agricultural practice piece of this. The Utah Farm Bureau has a soil health task force that is not only studying, but also trying to implement better soil management practices to increase organic matter in the soil, and which of course improves water use and nutrient retention and all kinds of things. But I think it is to, I can't remember if it was Carly or Chandler or somebody else, but this idea, there isn't a single silver bullet here that solves the problem.
Yeah.
And even when you are doing agriculture in a very regenerative way in this region, um, any crop that you need to irrigate is going to use water, right? Even if it's being grown responsibly. And so there are challenging questions about how much acreage is sustainable in this area, what kinds of crops are adapted to the climate. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the connection with soil and oil. Chandler, Carly?
I kind of missed the question, but soil and oil, I love where you're going. Like I mentioned in my intro, I started in the food system and agriculture, and actually have a few projects now working with small farmers on some soil health outreach. The Utah Department of Agriculture also has a soil health partnership and task force, and I forget the number, but like for every 1% of soil organic matter, it really increases the holding capacity of the land. And so, not only does the soil add more nutrients to the food and things like that, but it can allow us to better hold on to the little moisture that we do get here. And something I think a lot of people don't know, and this is, beyond Utah, beyond Great Salt Lake, but the chemicals that people are using to spray on our produce are made from fossil fuels. So it's this terrible loop. And the agriculture that we are engaged in here is primarily not, it's more commodities, a lot of commodities for export. But like I said, we're really embedded in this larger global system. And I think that the changes that we need in agriculture are much larger than the Great Salt Lake community is going to do on its own. Like that needs to be a separate conversation. But I really have always felt like agriculture can be this bridge, because we have some of my experiences with farmers. We now do a soil health in the West conference down in St. George every other year. And when I was there, I think in 2022, you see these older conservative men that you may not ping as a climate activist right out of the gate. And they're talking about, hey, I used to have frogs on my farm and I don't have that anymore. And they, all these different things that they're observing. And so I'm like, wow, these are really our frontline kind of climate warriors. I'm not going to use the word climate with them necessarily, but I think the agricultural community is much closer to the land than almost everyone else here. So I think for a number of reasons, it's important that we bring them in. And again, none of this is separate. So it's like a relationship to water, relationship to land, relationship to soil. It's all connected. Yeah, now I could just ramble on forever about.
No, that's great, Chandler. Yeah, we call it the food, water, energy nexus, right? Which are actually just manifestations of the same human activities. Diana? Shannon, I don't know. Do you run this or do we just, it's open?
You guys, if you're running it, I don't have to work.
Okay,
So
great.
this
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah, thank you. The talk was fascinating, actually, all the different points that come into it. It's what affects the whole situation. And I put in there the point about talking about agriculture. In Phoenix, they have a horrible situation with the groundwater because of these major agricultural firms deleting the groundwater. The level has grown so that the locals don't get the groundwater anymore in their houses. And these firms, as I've read, are from Saudi Arabia. They're not even US firms. My question to you guys is the agricultural or the agriculture that is grown around you, is it local? Is it for local crops, for local usage, or local firms at least, even if there is stuff that gets exported to other states or whatever else? But when you talk about getting the agricultural firms involved, they're going to have to be local community in order to be worrying about their own future, basically. Otherwise, they'll just move out.
Yeah. And, Sarah, who was on the panel, she's the one who knows the numbers best as far as how much is used locally and inside the watershed and how much is exported. the majority is, and Chandler, you referred to this too. There's a narrative that most of the crops being grown in the Great Salt Lake watershed or in Arizona are being exported elsewhere. And there are specific cases. There's an interesting film called The Grab that was shown at Sundance about some of that international demand for specific crops and how that can have really negative consequences on communities and on sustainability of water and other things. But most of the crops that are being grown are being used locally. But there's for me, a really interesting question about why are we growing feed for livestock rather than food for people? And it's just about the least efficient way to provide nutrition and food for people is to feed it to another organism and then eat that organism or one of its products. And so,
is that livestock around the Great Salt Lake, or is that livestock somewhere else?
it's a mix. Yeah. Chandler, did you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mix. And I will say, like, yeah, I think it's something like 80% of our water is for agriculture, about 60% of that is for alfalfa, and about a quarter of that is exported. But a lot of it that does stay locally to say feed cattle or dairy cows here, those final products don't stay in Utah. So really we are, exporting it in the form of like, we're feeding cattle that will then be shipped elsewhere. And that it really comes down to like a supply chain infrastructure problem. I've talked to farmers who want to keep things locally. A lot of them are in rural areas and, they say, okay, well, if I was to stop growing alfalfa and grow something else, like where would I sell it? I don't have consumers here. Or they don't have processing infrastructure. I hear from farmer friends and they're waiting 2 years to get their cattle processed, or they have to get on the list 2 years in advance. So it's really the agribusiness, controlled USDA that we have now is really favoring the large corporations versus these small actors who, despite their best intentions and their desires, they don't have a lot of choice. And then they get, backed into debt schemes and all these things.
And from what I've read, and I know very little about it, but beef and cattle, the cattle get shipped, it's all centralized. And if something happens to that one central firm, which has happened in the past, then these local farmers are also completely.
And it's something that really grinds my gears. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Helena Norberg. She's got Norberg hyphen something. She runs the organization Local Futures, which you should all check out if you're not familiar. But they did an incredible film talking about how there's so much duplication in agriculture. So I think the US is like the #1 importer and exporter of beef. So there's this dominant narrative of like, we've got to feed the world, how would everyone survive? But it's like, if you run the numbers, all of these countries are importing and exporting the same things. And a lot of that stuff, we're not accounting for the emissions in that. So it's kind of just this like, yeah, it's bad.
If I could make 2 comments, one of them I think you'll like, Chandler, and one of them you may not like. If you look at energy requirement, and energy is just a metric for what the overall impact is of agriculture. The transportation piece is very small. Globally, it's less than 10%. Some estimates around 5 to 7% of the overall energy consumption of the global agricultural system. And that does not mean that, there are lots of reasons why you want to have local agriculture and things like that. But thinking at a global scale, one of the best things we can do is grow crops where they grow naturally. And even if then we need to ship them, right? And so if we were thinking about, hey, Chip Ward makes this point in Canaries on the Rim, a really interesting book about why so much environmental degradation is concentrated in the West generally and in Utah specifically. Right. So the only production of magnesium in the whole country goes on right here in Utah on the shores of Great Salt Lake. Water is evaporated, salts extracted, and then the magnesium is taken from that. Creates a huge amount of air pollution. Why is that going on in this area, not others? And there's a whole environmental justice history there. But Chip Ward mentions, you can grow a lot more cattle on a much smaller area east of the Mississippi than you can west of the Mississippi, right? So let's grow the crops, including livestock, where we need them. That's the part maybe you don't like, Chandler. But the part that you do, that I think we really agree on, is just eating lower on the food chain has this enormous impact. If you look at your personal water footprint, nutrient footprint, energy footprint, we're talking about 60 to 90% decreases in how much resource is needed to support a person. And so it's a way of making more room, literally and figuratively, for other humans and other life on Earth, to eat, plus all of the personal health benefits and animal rights. And 80% of global antibiotics are used on livestock, not on people. And so it's one of the most impactful changes you can make, and it'll help Great Salt Lake if you're consuming any of those products, as Chandler mentioned, that are actually coming from this watershed and going to global markets.
Thank you so much, Ben. Diana, you're back again. You're not finished. Come on in.
Yeah, no, I was finished, but what Ben just said about antibiotics being used on the animals, I mean, it ends up being used on us too.
Yeah.
Because, and even in more concentrated forms. And basically what I wanted to bring in, and our conversation was talking about animals as animals, but if we learnt to see them as living beings like us and treated them with respect, such as we should water as well, it would change a lot in terms of what we do, how we work, and everything else.
Yeah. Well, and the conversation came up about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it is really interesting. Very clearly in our health code, which we call the Word of Wisdom, it says twice, don't eat. It is pleasing unto the Lord that you not eat other animals, unless you have to, right? If it's a time of famine, if there aren't other resources available. And that whole revelation is centered around, how do we take care of the entire community, right? So while that might work on a very small scale for a small portion of the Earth's population, if we're thinking about taking human flourishing at a global scale, certainly the food system is central to that, and eating less meat is a big step. Stan?
Yes, Stan, come on in.
Okay, well, I mean, what we're talking about really is consciousness, and we are engaged here and in Humanity Rising, and Ubiquity is a champion of the idea that we need to learn to think in different ways. And so we're needing to establish confidence in the idea that most of us on planet Earth would go along with a sustainable process if they were given the idea that it's possible to be sustainable and regenerative. And so the work is not necessarily to deal with all these little issues, but the little issues need to be dealt with too. We have multiple things to do on multiple levels, but whenever we can, we need to exchange ideas and set up more ways for conversations to happen. I have an idea for using the political process to build community ideas. I will talk about that at another time. And Sharon knows what I'm talking about. But the fact is, we have this magnificent mind development tool called the internet. And we have tools like this, Zoom. And so we just need to practice using them and make the consensus of satisfying the planet and the people a reality for more people. So it's just simply to spread the idea that we can do something. We are, as you mentioned earlier, having a nervous system in an animal to coordinate the function of the organs and the cells. Well, we've been building the nervous system for planet Earth now for pretty much 20 years or so. I started doing this stuff back in 1969 when I heard the words whole Earth catalog. And it's delightful to me to be here now talking to people who are working on this stuff and encouraging. I mean, all I can do is say, let's go, everybody. We can all do our own part. We do need to settle the idea that uh, the only way to grow food is in big lots, in big corporations doing that. We need to have a more local conversation about the food systems in our neighborhoods. I'm going to be talking to some people that we're working with here in Philadelphia about a plan for what to do, a sustainability plan for Philadelphia. We need to have some thinking about that. It needs to start with community groups, and it needs to start have the people who have been working on um, food issues for a long time. Judy Wicks is somebody here in Philadelphia who has been doing this kind of work around the state, and I need to pipe up and try and bring her ideas into the community groups that are here in Philadelphia who don't never heard of her, even though she is well known around the world. Um, so it's a matter of telling more people about what is happening and what can happen, and I applaud all of you who are here today, and Chandler and Ben, and who's left? Oh, the others. Oh, Bob is here leading this group. Thank you, and certainly religions have a big role to play in unifying the mindset of the world, and that's what it is. It's a mindset, a set of memes that need to be understood by more people.
Chandler would like to have a word.
Well, go ahead, please do.
I would love to, yeah. I actually have an excerpt that I've clipped from an old Whole Earth catalog on my fridge that says something to the
Nice.
effect of like, forget about the problems, concentrate on the solutions, and communicate them in relevant, easily understood, duplicable terms. Which I think is so critical for this issue and for all of them. It's like, we really don't need to convince that many more people, if any more people, that there's an issue. We don't need to spend time swimming in, the scale of the crisis, although of course there's a time and a place for that. But I think the work really is to organize those of us who are already on board and present attractive solutions that light people up and, light that fire of engagement that's going to create the energy to actually realize those things. So yeah, I think it's so important to focus on, we could point the finger all day, and that actually does happen in the Great Salt Lake issue. It's like, it's their problem, it's their issue. This person needs to stop watering their lawn. This person needs to stop farming. And it's like, quiet all of that, honestly, and just give me a roadmap forward, and let's focus on that and build
Okay.
consensus around that.
Okay, here's part of the roadmap. Categories, indexing. We have all these solutions that are running around in the world. How do we have them organized? We have Google, and Google does some of a job, but more people need to be paying attention to things like, something called other networks, which has a category system that I'm trying to promote. And we need people paying attention to what categories does this action belong in? What category does that action belong in? How do we introduce people to each other? So the task at hand is matchmaking.
I'm going to interrupt, Stan.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry. The reason I'm going to interrupt is because not only is othernetworks.org Stanley's baby,
Yes.
he developed it because of Humanity Rising. And it has the links to all of Humanity Rising episodes, all of the after chats. It's got the chats from all of them. And they're all linked to all of the presenters who have been on Humanity Rising. Stan's desire to connect the world is starting with Humanity Rising. The network of networks is coming together in all sorts of different places, and we're trying to weave them together. And Carol Sue has her hand up. Come on in, Carol Sue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So I wanted to take you back to Salt Lake and ask a question about the pollution. Is pollution a big factor in this? And if so, I have a solution.
Yeah, so there is a real link with pollution. As the lake has declined, it's exposed more of the dry lake bed. And over thousands of years, that lake bed has accumulated a lot of things that we don't want in our bodies, like arsenic and selenium and mercury. And so the exposed lake bed is increasingly becoming a source of particulate matter pollution. And then that impacts, of course, the people and animals. It also gets deposited on the snowpack and causes earlier melt out of the snow. And the best estimate from 2022, when the lake was low, is that snowmelt happened 17 days earlier than it would have without the dust deposition. And so, I mean, it's a huge impact on both human health and the hydrological system.
Well, there is a man in Japan that came up with a solution to clean waterways. And I think it's, I had it earlier. I'll have to, it'll come back around the loop. I actually looked into this for the Salton Sea because I'm from the Springs area and worked with the company that was working on that. But it would be a lot of money, you know, because it's a big body of water. And their issue is selenium, too much selenium. So I wondered if that was part of the issue here as well. It was too much selenium.
Yeah, that has been an issue. And it you know, selenium is interesting because it's an essential nutrient, right? But at high concentrations, it's a teratogen that causes growth and birth defects. So,
and yet it's an anti-carcinogen at certain levels.
Yeah.
If you a food source selenium. So I'll have to.
Yeah, please send.
Is that something they want to work on? Is eliminating the pollution? Would that make a difference?
So right now the focus is on the water, right, and getting more water to the lake. But there are plenty of other issues with water quality that need to be addressed. There's an interesting thing that happened when the railroad causeway was built across the lake in the 1950s. It disrupted the lake's natural circulation and caused the formation of a deep brine layer. So a layer of extremely salty water that was deoxygenated, formed across the bottom of the lake. And that caused microbes, anaerobic microbes that methylate mercury to turn elemental mercury, which is not particularly toxic, into methyl mercury, which is extremely toxic and which bioaccumulates. And it was restoring the lake's natural hydrology that reduced those levels of methylated mercury in the lake. But it gets back to this. One of the other ecological laws is nature knows best. And when we look at these systems, Sarah in the panel mentioned this a few times, when we look at a natural system and say, what are the 25 ways we could, quote, improve it? That always has side effects, unintended consequences. And if instead we look at our culture and say, what are the things that we can adapt and change to live in harmony in a reciprocal relationship with this part of creation, that is a much more resilient and durable way of solving those problems.
So do you have tilapia in that lake?
No, it's saltier than any fish species can sustain. So there aren't any fish. Occasionally, fish will get washed in through the tributaries, but they either swim back to the rivers quickly or die.
Chandler.
Oh, I just was saying I've got to jump off, but thank you guys so much. This is incredible. It's fantastic to meet you all.
I want you to come back, Chandler. We're here every day after Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising has brought some amazing people in, like Jeremy Lent.
Yeah.
And, you know, we do believe that water is alive.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so
Let's stay
there,
connected. I would love to. I'll get your contact and
oh, absolutely. I'll put my email
Put your
address.
emails in
that would be
here in
great.
the chat. Put your
Yeah,
email
I'll
in the
drop mine
chat.
as well if anyone. I love to chat about this stuff all the time. So
And
Yes.
the thing
Well,
is that Stan sends out an email every day with the links for the day
beautiful.
to other networks. And so when you put your email address in the chat, he will send you that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you, Chandler. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I need to step out too in just a few minutes, but I could take a couple more discussion topics or
Ben, I
questions.
just have a quick question in terms of the fish. Has it always been that way, that the lake has been too salty to harbor
So
life?
yeah, so Great Salt Lake is such a fascinating water body. It's quite young, geologically speaking. So it's only been around for the past 12 to 14,000 years. Before that, this whole region was filled with a large freshwater lake that we now know as Lake Bonneville. And it was
Okay.
about the size of Lake Michigan. Um,
And what caused the
and
change? Yeah,
and
which is
so
what you're about to
around
say.
15,000 years ago, so this was during the Ice Age, the lake level got so high that it overtopped a mountain pass into what is now Idaho. And over the course of a day, or at the most a few days, much of that lake water drained out through the Snake River Valley in what we believe to be the second largest flood in recent geological history. And so the lake dropped over 100 meters, about around 400 feet in just a matter of days. And then after that, because of natural climate change, the lake level dropped and concentrated the salts into what is now known as the Great Salt Lake. So it has, before European settlers arrived, it was already too salty for fish, and that creates the really unique food web that's there that depends on, as Carly was teaching us, the brine flies and the brine shrimp that then support all of this this bird and animal life that feed off of them. And it is extraordinary. If you see the swarms of brine flies are so thick that young shorebirds will just literally run with their mouth open and collect them. I mean, it's like a baleen whale. And that's, in 2022, the lake got so salty that the brine flies couldn't complete their life cycle. And so bird mortality increased. And that was a sign of how close we were to full collapse of the ecosystem. And as Tim mentioned in the panel, we're until we reduce our water use to a sustainable level, we're always going to be just a couple or a few dry years away from that point again. We need to get as far away from the edge as we can.
Is there a history of the lake anywhere?
Yeah, there is. And I'll put in the chat, if you go to GSL for Great Salt Lake, gsl.byu.edu, that was our report that we published early last year. It's focused on the emergency that we're in right now, but it also links to over 100 documents, if I'm remembering right, including really nice histories. And let me see, there's a great story map that the Utah Geological Society.
You're saying that it was Lake Bonneville before.
Yeah.
Did the French name it or something, or what?
Yeah, so there was a geomorphologist named G.K. Gilbert, who is a really important scientist who kind of pioneered the field of geomorphology. And he named he was the first one to notice that there were these deltas all over at exactly the same elevation. And he was saying, hey, how could these have been deposited? And so then reconstructed, and through careful topographic mapping, reconstructed that there used to be a lake here, and then named it after one of the sponsors of the expedition, who was named Bonneville.
Captain John Bonneville was one of the early explorers into the West, and that's where he was part of that group.
And this is an example of that the indigenous have been around a lot longer than we are giving them credit for.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the native people in the Southwest had said to anthropologists and natural scientists, you know, we have been here a lot longer than you're saying, right? Because there was this debate, is it recent? Is it just a few thousand years? And um, and recent archaeological work has confirmed what they've been saying all along.
And that they were actually there earlier than what they say, that they
Before,
came across the Bering Strait and down, that they've actually been there a lot longer than that.
that's right.
They have come up, with things in the, sorry, where is it? Mexico, New Mexico, the
White Sands, right? That pushes that horizon back at least 20,000 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's fascinating.
One of the things that's come up in the last while to my attention is a concept of the universe as one song. And the way I've been envisioning it, in the indigenous people have worked on their song and in their local song for a long time. And one of the aspects of humanity is that we are designed to be kind of the conductors, the harmonizers of all the songs in order to create the universe, the one song that we are all creating together. Each one of our instruments is important, as is each one of the instruments of the local, the mountains, the lakes, the rivers, all of these we need to be aware of and know about and deeply understand in order to harmonize with the greater song.
Yeah.
It speaks to my soul. I love this, and I want more of it. I see it in our religions now becoming more aware of the role that they play in the lives of the people that they touch. How does this sit with you, Ben?
I really love it and believe and have felt a lot of those same ideas. The Pope Francis in his 2015 encyclical mentions, and I don't have the exact quote, but how intimately related is love of nature, concern for the poor, and interior peace. Really recognizing that all of those things are part of the same way of singing in harmony with the universal song. I really like that metaphor, Shannon. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. I talk about the magic in ordinary moments. To me, that's Mom, the evidence of the greater hands that are weaving us together.
Yeah.
Through Humanity Rising, I get to hear so many different perspectives. And and I like Stan. I have my own song. And I tend to share my song like he does as often as I can. And I do like to think that the stories that I have created through my life and I put into words, that's what I am as a storyteller. And I share the stories to help people see the magic in their lives, because my life has been so magical. The magic in ordinary moments, it's because my life was so ordinary. Well, it isn't anymore. But being here in this space, I see magic happening all the time. And it is, I feel, the hand of the divine reaching into our lives and creating what is necessary for us to learn how to conduct ourselves, and the great song.
Yeah.
In a good and harmonizing way.
Yes. Thank you. And I apologize. I've got to sign off, but
Okay.
this has been
Do we
really
have your
nourishing
email
conversation.
address?
You got my email address.
Okay. Do you want to be part of the more active group of us?
Sure. I'm
We
very
have-
bad at email, but loop me in. And
Okay. We have an
I-
email group called Chat Action, and there's about 200 people on that, as opposed to the 1,000 people who are on our daily list.
yeah.
So,
Thank you
I'm
very
so
much
glad
for
you
your
could
wonderful
come.
welcome.
Ben,
Thank you
thanks
so,
for your
so much.
generosity. It's wonderful to have you and the panel here, and I'll be sending you another note about another project.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon, and everybody.
Thank you so much. Oh, Bob, I really want to say how much I appreciate the work that you do in bringing these people to us. Thank you so, so much. And
It's a
for
pleasure.
bringing your lovely wife to
It's
be
good when
with
that
us.
helps me. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
all right. Take care. Now, today
Uh-huh.
I got this entry in my email, a curated article, a bibliography for studying the history, not just of the world, but of the universe. And so I took a quick look at that, and it goes on for pages and pages and pages. It's like shocked. It is a massive piece of work done by Michelle Bowens, who is the founder or leader of the P2P movement, the person to person, people to people. And somebody who I've known for many years, but I've never actually communicated directly with him. I have to do that now. It's like, okay, because this guy is putting out stuff. He runs the P2P Foundation and the website for that, and it's linked in my mind to the encyclopedia that I talk about all the time, because I met Michael and Tony through the same correspondence group that was run by Larry Victor for many years. And Michael is obviously producing more stuff. I can't wait to look at it. What he warns is that no one will ever read all the books, stuff that he's putting into this bibliography. It's impossible, in any one lifetime. So I'm curious to see what I do find in it. It's coming from Michelle. It's not Michael. Michelle's fourth generation civilization Substack. And I'll
You've
be
gotten into
posting.
Substack. Uh-huh.
Well, Substack seems to maybe be a place to do some work. I think I'm going to try
Good for you.
creating a come together, don't,
Yeah.
by the Beatles as the title of my Substack, Come Together, and we'll see how that plays out. But
I want to bring up a distinction that you brought up with me the other day, and it arises
yes,
from a comment by Rob Hayes in the chat, mentioning platform cooperativism. And the words cooperate and collaborate came up in our conversation, Stan. And it intrigued me, the difference between cooperation and collaboration. And so what we learned about that is that, pardon me, cooperation is when you get along. Collaboration is when you actually work together. Yeah.
yes.
I like it.
Yes, that's a very nice summary of a long article that I ran into recently by asking Google, what is the difference between collaboration and yeah. So there's a beautiful article, and I'm putting a link to it in other networks.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's just too much stuff going on in the world. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And that is important to understand. 8 billion people all trying to talk to each other at once. Here comes everybody, and here comes the rest of the universe. And that's why Michelle's bibliography is going to be information. Oh, and we have okay, Bob Hayes is talking about Michelle Bowers. Good. The
Oh.
founder and director of the PTP Foundation. Yes, excellent.
Works in collaboration.
Yes, right. And right, collaboration and cooperation. And we need them all. And there's another term that goes along with that. And I forget how to, it's at the top of
It's,
one of the pages of the definition of collaboration and cooperation. There's a P word, participation.
oh,
Yes, I think that's it, participation. And when people are participating, they may be collaborating, they may be cooperating, or they may be doing something else, hopefully not trying to knock each other down.
yeah.
I could like to if you don't mind, correct something that you said the other day, just a little earlier today. My work on creating other networks started 15 years ago with Wikidelphia.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, of course, all right.
I did misspeak. And I do apologize.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The category system came from my effort to help the United Way in Philadelphia more than 20 years ago to
Access.
computerize their directory of social services.
Yeah.
And I gave them a Macintosh computer that Apple had given to my organization, among many. We were an Apple grantee, and I and my friend were considered uh, uh, specialists, support people for
Yeah.
Apple's grant program in the region here in Philadelphia. And we had all these Macintoshes, and we set up a computer lab and a computer program that became my nonprofit technology resources, which was at its peak, it was a $500,000 a year program that, yes. And Wikidelphia and the category system came from when the fact is that the United Way took the data that I helped them get into their computer and sent it to a lady at Penn who was a computer person, information specialist, and she set it up into an information and referral service software. And I came back 6 months later. How's the information and referral service software thingy? How's this computer doing? And the people at the staff looks at me and goes, nobody here knows how to query it. We can't get any information out of it. The only person who can get any data out of the thing is the lady from Penn. And I said, that's silly. It should be simple. Something is something. It does something. It's about something. It serves certain people. And I'm thinking about agencies in the Philadelphia area of, how do we describe the agencies? Well, they are something. They're a legal service. They do something. They do free pro bono services for poor people. And so this was the source of the 12 or so top level categories in Wikidelphia's category system, which is what it was for 10 years before other networks came along. Because the stuff I was finding, especially when I started paying attention to Humanity Rising, the stuff did not fit into Wikidelphia. And how am I supposed to pack all this stuff into Wikidelphia, which has already 5,000 pages. And I just noticed today that Other Networks has more than 5,000 pages. It's closer to 6,000 pages. And Diana, you have a question or a concern? You're surprised
No,
by
but
My
something?
hand up.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not saying anything except I'm looking at all this information coming into the chat.
Okay, sure. Well, that's one of the problems of the world. Considering what a librarian
Sue.
faces when you go to the library and there's 30,000 books in that little library, and ask the librarian, have they read all these books? And of course, the answer has to be no. There's
Dan,
no
Carol
way.
Sue's got her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Carol Sue.
Yes, I went down a rabbit hole looking for the Japanese inventor of the that cleans the waterways. And I didn't find it, but I found this inventor in Japan who has over 3,500 patents. And he's quite cocky about his inventions. It's kind of interesting. And then, but I had a brainstorm because I was also I contacted the Minister of Environment here because they had a polluted river. And so I did contact the people then, and somewhere in my very organization, I have the notes and the newspaper article from that. So I may be able to find it, but I do feel that it is something that could help them if they knew about it. So that at least jarred my memory to find that. So I will look for it.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
With all the people you know, do you have anybody you know who knows Robert Edward Grant?
Who is Robert Edward Grant?
Well, that answers my question, doesn't it?
Yeah. Who is he?
You
Spoken
should
about
know
recently.
him. Yeah,
Who
Robert
is
Edward.
he? Who is he?
He is
Sacred
a
geometry.
polymath.
Yeah, polymath.
And he has been into the King's Chamber of the Pyramid of Giza, and
Mhm.
he has seen the writing on the wall.
Well, I've heard of him. I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
of that incident,
Yeah.
but I don't know that I know
Right. And
anybody.
he was the gentleman leading the tour of an island where they found certain new discoveries of rock formations
Orion's
about
belt.
around Orion, the star system.
Yeah, that's a very recent video.
So he
Yeah.
has actually predicted, from what I got, he's actually predicted the Betelgeuse, the shoulder star of Orion, that it's going to go nova. And it went nova, 1,300 years ago. It's taken that much time and actually to arrive here. And he feels that that's going to create a huge change in our experience of life, because that nova is going to provide the same luminosity as a full moon.
Didn't we just hear something about this? And that there is a special star in Orion's belt, or in
That's
that
it.
constellation?
Betelgeuse. Yep.
Didn't we just hear that?
Yeah, it's a very recent video if you've been watching it.
Yeah.
You
I'm
mean
gonna
on
look for
Humanity
everybody.
Rising, Carol Sue?
Yeah, I thought. And it was fairly recently.
I have so much input. I don't know where
Yeah, I
things
know.
come from. Sorry.
It was a couple
That's
weeks
right.
ago. I think just a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
Because I've been wanting to find it and watch it over.
Thank
What,
you,
the
Leo.
human-
You have been such a star today. And I do see Michael's got his hand up.
Okay, but I think it was the lady that maybe
the
communicates with.
Cosmos.
Oh, yeah. Let me have a
Oh,
look.
wait a minute.
Is it ringing anybody's bells?
Which one?
Well,
All of the time.
she communicates. She communicates with extraterrestrials or,
From our program recent?
yeah,
Was
Yeah,
it
she was in the after
Samantha?
chat.
Who?
Sweetwater, maybe?
Samantha Sweetwater? It
Maybe,
may have
yeah,
been.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that rings a bell.
We've had a couple people. There was one lady that is talking about Mount Shasta and and leading tours of it, and she was on with 2, 3 in the after chat with other people who were talking to us about um, their direct communication from the
Right.
ETs.
She
Right.
Tui,
Yes, that's
Yes,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Exactly.
and
Somebody
she
has a
was on
memory.
day 880.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Michael?
Have to run.
Now,
Bye, everybody.
today, bringing up the name Lent, I have to check this Lent person out to see if that person is related to a Philadelphian named Lent, who actually lives in California now, but he's coming back, who was the leader of the environmental movement here in Philadelphia 35 years ago. Bob Hayes, do you know that Tom Lent is coming to town on the 21st? I don't know if he's listening.
Bob is listening. On the 21st, he says?
Yes, Tom Lent is going to be at what's her name's house for a reunion on the 21st at
Very cool.
Liz and Paul's house.
Liz and
And
Paul's.
so, yes, it's very cool. We're going to be there. Both Sally and I will be there.
I'm so glad that you get to do things like this locally
Well,
and
that's
you don't have
rare.
to Zoom all the
It's
time.
rare. I don't talk to
Yeah.
anybody in Philadelphia, and I have to stop that.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Stop that or start it?
well,
Book discussion. No, Jeremy Lent. No, Leo's asking about Jeremy Lent. No, he came up because one of the participants mentioned him, but
yeah, I think it might have been Chandler. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a true pleasure once again. Thank you so much. I'm going to slide on. I've got a few nuggets to catch up on because I've been having Wi-Fi problems in my new home. And so I got to catch up. So I'll see you guys later.
Okay. Bye-bye. And Trisha's not here today, but Trisha was very kind to send me the link to the fundraiser thingy that Jim is talking about. I had not received anything because I'm not one of the privileged few that might be able to give $1,000. But it was a lovely thing to see, and I'll be putting that someplace where it's findable. I think Georg put it in the chat again today, a link to the fundraiser, which is very nice, a very nice description of all the things that Humanity Rising, well,
What?
of Ubiquity. It's a Ubiquity fundraiser. It's not a Humanity Rising.
What has happened to Kat?
Kat moved out of Alaska, and I don't know. I think she went to Hawaii, and we haven't seen much of her in 2 months now, almost.
Yeah.
My guess is that she got way too busy for us because she has all these projects that she establishes. But we could find out. Do you know how to write to her?
No, I won't take the time. I just suddenly, she was participating and had so much to say,
Yes, yes.
particularly with Rotary and everything.
Well, not everybody can be everywhere all the time. Oh, Cobb Institute is hosting Jeremy Lent. Okay, April 20th. All right, thank you, Leo. And Cobb Institute, we need to acknowledge somebody else who's not here as much as they used to be. Charles Betterton is the president of one aspect of the Cobb Institute, and their work with China and stuff. And so Okay, so Rob Hayes is leaving. All right, well, that's fine. I think it's time to stop the recording and
Move on.
stop the summary and stop the recording.